Shalom Aleichem, and let us learn a Sicha together. Mishpatim Aleph Chelek Tezayin. It's a marvelous Sicha. As they say, a Yesodistic Sicha, fundamental Sicha. And fundamental, obviously, if you learn the Sicha, you'll see it's fundamental from understanding the role of Mishpatim, the mitzvahs that make sense versus Chukim. But for me, what I found the biggest insight was its insight into something that you see in the Rebbe's Torah often repeated. If I dare say, it's the most fundamental theme in the Rebbe's Torah, and that is what you'll find in almost every single Sicha and every Maimer. Maila, Mata, Chibur, Beineim. Basically, Dirah Betachtonim. The above, below, combining. And often the Sicha boils down to that Nakuda. But what I found in this Sicha that was quite insightful for me, that I never really explored, was how the Rebbe does this relationship between Elyonim and Tachtonim. And the diuk, in other words, as the Rebbe says in Oizayin, the point that the Tachton does not get misbatel, doesn't lose its identity, but rather the way it is, it goes up to Elyon, and how that then plays out in the theme of the Rebbe Sicha, Zekeli Vanveu Lekeavi Valei Memenu. The idea that Dirah Betachtonim means that the Kedei soll sich äußern in the Kavanah of Matan Torah, as he says in Zion, what's the intention of Matan Torah, as Welt als Metzias von Tachten, that the world, the way it is at Tachten, should be combined with Elyonim, and that only happens through Avodas HaTachten. Obviously, the Eibishter has to be Ani HaMaschel, be the first, but we're the ones that show up and do B'koyach Atzmam, with our own strength, we go up to Elyonim. And then the Rebbe plays that in the Munah, in Oisches. And Munah does not come through our efforts. Naturally, Munah comes the way we're born. And therefore, it's not your Metzias. Because anything that you didn't work for is not your Metzias. When does it become yours? Zekeli. When Mehadavet, when a person makes the effort to understand Alikus, and it comes from their Metzias, then it becomes Aniva Udvukim B'yachad. In other words, what the Sicha is really playing out is the Nekuda of Chabad. Why is it so important that each and every one of us studies Chassidus? Because the only way, for me at least, I'm sure it's in other Sichas as well, but for me, what really the Sicha brought home is, the only way for Dirah Betachtonim to truly happen is for me to learn Chassidus. Because until I don't have my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no Dirah Betachtonim. When does Dirah Betachtonim take place? When the Tachtonim stays the way they are at Tachton and elevates. In other words, within the Kalim of the Tachton. How does one do that? Through working on their Emunah. How does one work on their Emunah? Through Chassidus. And that's how you accomplish the Kavanah of Matan Torah, that you combine Elyon and Tachton. For me, that was just that insight, that Nekuda, that only through learning Chassidus and Pnimius HaTorah can you then really accomplish Dirah Betachtonim. For me, that was an original insight that I don't recall learning before. And then there's the powerful Nekuda that's obviously combined into this, the Nekuda of Zekeli Vanveu Lekeavi Valei Memenu, which is a magnificent point. Obviously, it's based on the Shalah. The Shalah is the one that said it. But how the Firi Kedevas brings it down, and then the Rebbe explores it in the Sicha, and like it's, you thought it's a gleich vertel. It's like it's always shared as a sweet word. If it's Zekeli, if my God, Anivahu, we're connected. Lekeavi, but if it's my father's God, I am a man. But the Rebbe over here explores it in much deeper. Says the Rebbe in Ois Yud Beis, the Emunah basmat beKabbalah ish mipish, the Emunah that you have naturally, that's not an avodah, and therefore it's not connected to your Metzias. Interesting. It's the Chitas of the past few weeks, the Nekud of Abba Mesuteres, the Tanya of the past few weeks. That's not connected to Metzias Adam, and therefore it's not even mentioned in Shiras Bnei Yisrael. In the pasuk Zekeli Vanvei Lekeavi Valei Memenu, it's b'chlal no mention of that. However, once a person then works on the yichud betachlis, their ultimate unity with Hashem's chachma, then, and then the Rebbe says, and it's in one word, va'amveyu, not va'nivahu, 2 words, va'amveyu, it's 1 word. Then you have to come to the higher level, obviously, that the point of the Sicha is that you come to the level of chukim, you come to the level of, like the end of Parshas Mishpatim. Chukim. And how does the Rebbe say that, wrap it up in Ois Yud Gimel? That first there was the Iskalos of Torah Chassidus HaKlalis, which is not Seichel. That's from the Baal Shem Tov. Tzadik Bar Manasseh Yechaya. But what's the mechuven? What's the intention to penetrate? How does it penetrate? Dafke through Torah Chassidus Chabad, that brought Chabad into our understanding. As yet, as the Rebbe says in highlighting, can verstehen. Each one of us can understand and then allow it to penetrate. And the Rebbe says, as we were saying earlier, the big chiddush of the Sicha, which for me, this paragraph is this Sicha, und durch dem, was es ist da, die Asage in Alikus, bis neufen von Nibel bedrukim yachad, through that we accomplish this dveikus, through our understanding, is afilu ben es kumtzel der nacht to der akar, as takel to the shalom ne'de'acha, even when we come to the higher level where we understand that we can't understand, seinen bei ihm nit an inyan from makiv, nirgish in them adam gufa. They penetrate in the person, the mishpatim, and that's how you accomplish through asagas Torah b'chlal and Torah Chassidus Chabad b'frat. Yezechet to Tedasei Mashiach and Eifin Aliyah. What's the Rebbe saying again? How does one unite their mind with the Eibishter Torah? Dafke through Pnimius HaTorah in a way of Chabad, in a way of understanding. In other words, when I learn Chassidus and I'm understanding it, I'm taking a level which technically is beyond, just like Mishpatim, technically no mitzvah is a mishpat. Technically, every mitzvah is higher than our understanding. But the Eibishter wants it dafke mishpatim because the Eibishter wants us to understand it. And that's what Chassidus Chabad does. Chassidus Chabad is the mishpatim of Pnimius HaTorah. It allows the person to understand it. And that's Dirah Betachtonim, because what does Chassidus talk about? The Eibishter. So when a person understands this, and a person learns Chassidus, they're literally bringing the Eibishter into their mind, into this world. Now, this Sicha, again, it's incredible. The role of, obviously, Kabbalah Soil as a foundation, but that's not your Avodah. In other words, that's the beginning. The Rebbe says it's not even going into Az Yashir. That's a foundation, yes. But it has to reach a stage before level 3, which is Tachlis Idea Shalom that we don't get you. That has to reach a stage of Pashut Verstehen, Pashut understanding, Pashut learning, Mishpatim. That Torah has to become one with my mind. Otherwise, it cannot truly transform. So as the Rebbe said in Yud Aleph, as Muztak is an Yesod Kabbalah Soil. Of course, you need a foundation of Kabbalah Soil. But the Leidach is the Kavanah from Mishpatim as Oti Mitzvah soll durchnehmen sein Kirches Pnimim und Bemele darf sein am Mois Bedan. You have to reach a stage where you're screaming, I can't do an Avera. Not because of Kabbalah Soil, because it's penetrated in me. In other words, at some stage, Kabbalah Soil is not enough. It's Reishis Avodah. But Chassidus demands more than Reishis Avodah. It demands more than just a foundation of Kabbalah Soil. It has to become one. How does it become one? Through learning. And through understanding what we learn. Not just learning, saying the verite, understanding. And that's something that we often forget, whether we do Chitas and Rambam and Sicha. The point is that it has to penetrate. If this Sicha, this magnificent, long, but beautiful Sicha, Mishpatim Aleph, is going to affect us, how's it going to affect us? Simply by one way. If we understand it and then meditate on it, have His blameless, and then allow it to transform us. And then when it transforms us, we get to the highest level. But we have to understand what we learn. And that's why it's something I'm talking to myself, but often we're learning. I mean, we even went through a full year of Sichas. But now the question as we enter year 2 is, how much is the Sicha transforming the way I think? Because that only happens when I really learn it and I really think it through and I ask myself, what is the take-home message? What can I say? Now, last year's Sichas, I have to be honest, sometimes it's hard to say what's the Nakuda, you have to stretch. What's the message of this Rashi Sicha? How do I bring it into this world? These sichas are mamish, they're being fed to us. But we have to take and eat it. There has to be not only nasa, it has to be nishma as well. And the Mirz Hashem, may the Rebbe's Torah affect us, that we should start seeing reality the way the Rebbe sees it, which is ultimately not in the way of Kabbalah Soul, but we actually start seeing it. We have to stop saying, the Rebbe would say that, we're getting close to Mashiach, but I only see darkness. I only see COVID. No, the Rebbe wants us to see what he sees. L'chaim, that should happen.